All right, Stephen Webb, my man.
Simon, my
Good to
man.
see you.
Good to
Yeah,
see you, sir.
coming to us all the way from Orlando, Florida.
That's right. The
How
magical
are how
city.
are things? Yeah,
It's good, you know. Of course, we have perfect weather here all the time, and we have
yeah.
Mickey
I
Mouse.
saw you wearing
Uh,
shorts. You're making me jealous, but
yeah.
I
Well, you sent
guess
me a really nice picture recently with you in the snow. Is it still snowy there?
no. The snow is gone
Okay.
on this in this region, but northern parts. I was actually vacationing
Ooh.
last week and experiencing the last snow for this
I
season.
think
But
I think
anyhow,
snow is perfect for vacation, but not for regular living. So that sounds great.
yeah. Yeah, we should for the record we should tell people you've actually lived in Colorado, so it's
Yes,
not like you're one of these guys. What does snow look like or
that's
whatever?
right.
So
I love
yeah,
snow. You're right.
that's cool. All right, so good to have you here at Elevate
Yeah, thank
with
you.
all these great people linking in from different parts of our region and perhaps some people from different parts of the country here.
Wow,
That's kind of cool. Yeah.
that's really cool.
So you're father of two,
Yep.
Summer and Stellan.
Yep.
You're husband to Lauren.
Yep.
You're a Dallas Cowboys fan. How are they doing
Some
off
days,
season? Yeah,
some
some
days.
days you're a fan.
It's
Some
convenient
days
for
you
me
just
because my team is not good, but I
yeah,
also don't live in Dallas anymore, so I don't have to hear about them all the time. So I'm
yeah,
a
yeah,
fan when I need to be a fan, but I'm protected right now
yeah.
from being triggered with anything negative. It's really good.
Oh, that's good. That's good. So what else do we need to know about you?
Oh gosh, I mean, I think you said about my kids and my wife. That's my number one ministry. I love my kids. I actually like hanging out with my kids. That's a little bit
Mm.
unique maybe for some people, but we have a lot of fun. They're my number one.
Going to
Like
Disney World?
we go to Disney World a bit. We have our season passes, so
Yeah,
that's helpful. They like that kind of
that's
stuff.
cool.
Let's see. Oh, you know what? I like to play sports too, man. I'm a soccer player. I don't know if that relates
Yeah,
to you guys
yeah.
over there,
We're
but
happy to hear that you play soccer,
I
not
play
this
soccer.
American football thing.
Not
I
American football.
mean,
Now, I did play American football, but listen, I was born and raised playing soccer. I'm actually my son's. He just started soccer about 6 months ago, and I'm his coach.
uh-huh.
And so
Oh,
he's
that's cool.
awesome. He's amazing at it because I'm his
Yeah,
coach.
that's good.
so I'm a soccer player. So yeah, that's a lot of. I still play a little bit. I'm 41, but
That's
man, I play like I'm 21. Man, I bet you can
yeah,
tell.
that's good.
Is that what you're
I
thinking?
can, I can, we can tell, we can tell by just looking at you.
That's right.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You've been 20 years in vocational ministry,
Yeah.
different churches, but 10 of those years has been one of the most influential churches the last decade or so
Sure.
in all of North America. Elevation Church with Pastor Stephen Furtick, and I know you've also been involved in smaller church plants, and of course you grew up in church, and if you just give us the helicopter view of your life in ministry, what would
Yeah.
that look like?
Oh, that's a cool question. Yeah, so my dad's a pastor. Actually grew up in a music minister's home. So my mom and dad are both led worship. That's actually how I grew up. But naturally, we moved around to a few different churches. So I was just kind of born into it. My grandparents, my aunts and uncles. My brother is actually a worship leader at Life Church with Pastor Craig Rochelle. And so that's definitely kind of how I grew up. One time along the way, I was on staff at my dad's church, but I felt like God was asking us to go start a church. So my wife and I and a couple of friends, we moved to Colorado from Texas to start the conversation about starting a church. So we kind of dabbled in that. And then through that journey, that's where we had heard and connected with that small church at the time, Elevation Church, and made that connection. And then ultimately, kind of the funny part of the story, as you know, man, we just felt like God was calling us to move to Elevation, not for a job. They didn't offer me a job or anything like that. We just moved 1,546 miles from Colorado over to North Carolina to be a part of that church. I was hoping they would give me a job. I begged them to give me a job, but it took them about 9 months to catch up with my logic. And they finally gave me a job. So then, like you said, spent the last 10 years on staff at the church. We still attend the church, just recently resigned to do something different, but still attend the church. And still, obviously, that ministry is pretty phenomenal, impacting in hopefully positive ways all around the world. So yeah, that's the quick version ish.
Yeah. So what have you learned in these different places, different seasons that have helped you grow in leadership? And I mean, have you learned some things when you were? I mean, what have you learned in these different seasons?
Yeah. As you're in it, it probably feels different. You're learning something different there. But sitting here looking back now, what I can say that I've learned, again, only in hindsight, is that there are less like universal or absolute truths about leadership than we probably think there are. So, for example, at least in this country, which, we have a large country. So we have people that might say, well, it's easy to start a church in Charlotte, North Carolina. It's hard to lead a church in San Francisco. But there's massive churches that are doing great things in San Francisco. And there are small, frankly, terrible churches not doing very much in Charlotte. But a lot of people would say it's a universal truth that, well, it's harder in Boston or harder in New York and easy in the South and easy in Texas. And that's just not true. And so what I've learned and how that's helped me, though, is, man, wherever you go, you just work it. You work with what you have. And one of the talks I'm going to, have later is, Jesus was pretty resourceful and used what's around him. He just kind of made things work. He wasn't scrambling, trying to come up with excuses and change his entire paradigm or philosophy of ministry. He was like, you know what, we'll just make this work. And so that's really helped me. Again, hindsight looking back, I can see where I picked up some things in Texas that I could apply in Colorado. I picked up some things in Colorado, which is a very liberal, more northern kind of Western, like California style of a what do you call it? Population, I guess.
Yeah.
But I was able to apply some of that logic and knowledge and wisdom over in Charlotte, which is very cliche, Southern and South for this country. And then, of course, in Florida, a lot of immigrants here. It's a very different conversation here with a big Brazilian and Puerto Rican audience here. So that's different. But again, when I was young, I would have said, well, that town, that state, that leadership principle, that leader style, that's absolute. And I just found out that's not the case. There's a lot of things that won't work simply because we won't work them. And then conversely, if we just work what we got, it's amazing how effective we can be.
What could that look like to work with what you have? What would you say?
Man, a lot of it to me is in your mind. I think a lot of times we shut down potential based on our assumptions rather than before we ever get to the part of experimenting with something. So part of it's that. I think a lot of times we might say somebody's no for them. So before we connect with somebody at a coffee shop and talk to them about spiritual matters or just introduce them to Jesus or any of those things, we don't even have the conversation because we just assume because they speak a different language, so we think, or they're from, in our case, the West Coast of the country versus the East Coast, then we don't even do what could work, but we've already assumed and shut down an opportunity. So I think most of it's that is kind of what I'm talking about. It's simply just unlocking your mind to try something, to see an opportunity in front of you, kind of materialize a lot of its potential and say, you know what, I'm going to step into that. If it's not good, if it doesn't work out, so be it. But a lot of people say it won't work out and it's strictly a mind thing before they've actually, taken a step to do something bold. So
yeah, that's cool. It's kind of funny to think about it that way, but the reason we're having this conversation today is because you answered an email from this guy from Sweden who wanted to visit Elevation back in 2013.
Yeah.
I tried to contact the church one time or two, I think, without any response, and then finally someone forwarded my email or request to you.
Yeah.
And you helped me. I was planning to stay in the States for 8 weeks, visiting different churches. I had a motel room for 3 days or 3 nights.
Wow.
and luckily I found you, or maybe God led me to you.
Yeah, man.
I don't know.
Yeah.
And it's you helped me set me up with loads of connections, and even had me stay with your own mom and dad in Dallas when I was there.
Yeah.
And all of that stuff, and you even paid the 3 nights in a hotel.
Yeah, man.
Like the good Samaritan.
That's right.
You put me in a hotel when I didn't have any place to stay. So, and I remember one of those things you said, one of those last days when I was in Charlotte. You were kind of busy. I mean, we're all busy. Yeah. We always have things to do.
Sure.
But you said something like, when I was standing there, like, can we do something? And you said, like, what difference will it make if I answer 10 more emails in 5 years versus me taking you out for Starbucks and having conversation for an hour or so? So you brought me and you bought me Starbucks, and here we are sitting here today. That's pretty cool.
The magic of Starbucks.
I know there's no question in here, but I just love that. Would you just like to speak into that? I mean, that attitude of hospitality and investing in people, and why do you do that?
No, man, I love that story. And by the way, my mom and dad say hello. They remember you. They ask me about you every now and then. I might post about you on Instagram. I did it maybe a month or two ago, and then of course yesterday. And they, hey, tell him hi. So they
cool.
enjoyed their time. You clearly were
Lovely.
not a burden to them. They enjoyed it.
Yeah, that's good.
So, man, the thing that comes to mind as you kind of talk about that story is I told you, I'm from Texas. And then when we were moving from Texas to Colorado to, explore this idea of starting a church, I started just to call around and ask, hey, can I meet with you? Can I have Starbucks with you? And I'm not coming from another country. I'm coming just down the street. And I could not get people to call me back. It was so frustrating. And I felt like we were decently connected. I knew some of the right people. Now, granted, nowadays people are more connected, in quotes, because of social media. And this would have been just kind of when Twitter was a big deal before kind of, Instagram was even a thing and some of that. But so maybe it makes it a little easier now. I don't know. But the point is nobody would call me back. And I was pretty frustrated. And I made a commitment. I very clearly remember this. I was like, man, if I ever get to a place where I'm in charge of that church, like that big of a church or that influential of a ministry, I'm going to answer the dang phone call. And I said it. I said it out loud. I'm going to do it. I told some of the guys I was with that went to Colorado. They moved with us, and I told them the same thing. And so I made that commitment. And so fast forward a couple of years later, I didn't know when I made that commitment I would get to be at Elevation. I also didn't know at Elevation, sitting in the seat where literally I would be the place where all those requests from literally around the world, like yours, would come to me. And so I didn't know that at the time. But sure enough, as soon as it did, even before you, some other people from different parts of Asia, like again, far away places, and even small churches from down the street in Charlotte would call an email, and okay, if I've got time, I'm going to do it. It's not my job. I had another job to do at church, but I just had made that commitment because I feel like it's just, to me, it's like the parable of the talents. It's a 5-talent thing. If somebody's going to bring a connection to you and you've got 20 minutes to buy somebody a cup of coffee, you probably ought to do it. You never know where it's going to lead. And sometimes the benefit may not come to you on this side of eternity, maybe, but I don't want to excuse it where it's all going to be this eternal, like we work for the crown, I don't think it should be that either. Sometimes you could see some very tangible benefit come back. Like, I mean, we get to be friends now for 7-8 years now, all because of just an email. Like, and I'm too busy to respond to an email. That just seems weird to me. So that's where that commitment came from, as I was in the seat where nobody called me back, and I said, I'm going to call somebody back. And I have great friends around the world now who challenge me. I take some of your stuff, I apply it in the coaching that I do now. I take some stuff from my friend Roy, who's an Asian leader who's in Sydney, Australia. I take his stuff and I apply it in different places, but I couldn't do that if I don't answer these, random emails from strangers around the world. So, so that's where that comes from. I feel like, on some level, hospitality then is good stewardship. And it's not simply just a good manners that your grandmother teaches you. I think it's actually good stewardship. And if you're not going to take the time to steward the relationships that God's bringing to you because you can't see the end result, then he may just stop bringing them to you. And I never want to be the guy that stops a blessing because I can't respond to an email. That just seems dumb.
And what if you turn it the other way around? I mean, how much are we in charge of actually putting us in places where other people can speak into us? I mean, sometimes you can hear people maybe complaining they don't get the input they need, they don't get any new connections. But I mean, how can we also put ourselves in a place where we can be invested into? Yeah,
well, I mean, one of them is just physical proximity. I feel like nobody's going to speak into you if you're living your entire ministry life, leadership on Instagram from your couch. Go visit a church, go visit somebody. When you're at even a restaurant, hey, can I talk to the manager? I just want to know how you run this restaurant. Recently, I was at a restaurant in Georgia, maybe 500 miles or so from here. And they had it's a restaurant with one of those tables that's in the kitchen. It was the craziest thing. So me and this other pastor were sitting in the kitchen having our dinner. Actually, the staff is walking by. So I grabbed the manager. It's like, hey, man, you got a few minutes? And we had a 30-minute conversation about leadership, but in the context of the restaurant, simply because I stopped them and said, hey, can you just tell me what you do? And that doesn't happen if you're always going to order out, so to speak. It doesn't happen if you're getting all of your leadership influence from Instagram. Sometimes you got to leave the house, get up and go connect with people. So that's one thing I would say. Another thing is you might not be asking questions. People aren't going to answer questions that you don't ask. I think that's more of a hope and a wish. And sometimes I feel like it's good to just ask a question. It could be simple as like, what do you do or how do you do something? Other times, if you're really bold, you could say, hey, here's a problem I'm dealing with. Can you help me? And then if you're like the most bold, you probably say, hey, what's an area of my leadership you want to speak into? And really just open yourself up vulnerably and let them answer that question. That's a hard one. Maybe on that one, you probably need some relational equity there first. That's fine. But I do think at the end of the day, you've got to take steps towards development. You can't simply just be open to development. Does that make sense? Like, you need to move in that direction. And I just find a lot of people don't want to do that. I don't think that they're trying to be difficult. I just think they probably misunderstand how development works and how improvement works, as if it's going to fall out of the sky or something.
That's pretty cool. We have a few minutes left here, but today we have a lot of volunteers. We have leaders, pastors from a bunch of churches, most of whom are not paid to do what they do, and have every opportunity to spend their time and energy anywhere. Why would you say should they use all this effort and put in all the hours into building the local church?
I mean, the quick Jesus answer, Sunday school answer, is because it's the hope of the world. I do believe that. I think it's a place where hope is mobilized. I do believe it's where we can weaponize grace and mercy and those kind of things and go out and like really affect change. I do believe that. But probably more so, instead of why, I want to change the perspective of some of these people and say this. I don't know that pay is ever the end goal or result of it's not a reward. I've always said pay is a resource, not a reward. And I do think sometimes your paid staff, and I think this is worldwide as I see. I don't think this is just a unique regional thing. But somewhere along the lines, we've seen where paid staff is like this pinnacle. Like, that's where authority or skill or talent or calling starts. And I don't buy that. I think for me, pay is just a resource. Like, hey, you've been so effective. You are so good at speaking life into people. I want to pay you so that I can let you do this more often. I want to give you more resource to do that. And we've kind of flipped it and made pay a reward. Hey, thanks for being good. Let me reward you for that. So if you keep that in mind, then all of a sudden it's not really, am I paid or not paid? It's the single question. It still applies to everybody. Are you doing the most good? Are you doing everything that you can do? Going back to that parable of talents, there's 5 talent guy, there's 2 talent guy. But they were both rewarded because they maximized what they did have. And so if you're waiting like the 1 talent guy, if you're waiting around to be paid for something, to make a decision, to make a bold request, to move boldly, take initiative, to instigate some change, I don't know that it's ever going to happen. And that's completely exclusive from pay. So why you should do it, I mean, at the end of the day, it's probably because, Jesus did something special in your life, for you, through you, whatever. But hopefully the perspective I just gave you flips it to where you're like, well, then, yeah, I want to keep doing that. And matter of fact, I think as I'm talking now, I think I'm talking more even to the leaders over the volunteers, to where, hey, I said this, I've been a volunteer and I've been a paid staff over 60 or 70 staff members too. I've seen both sides of it. And I'm going to make a pretty general statement here, but I believe volunteers do better work anyway, because it's the purest form of the product you're trying to present. They're not doing it for any other reason than they love it, then God has asked them to do it. And so if I'm a leader over those people, I don't want to mess up that purity by creating this gap between paid and unpaid. I just want to resource whoever I can, whether it be with a paycheck, whether it be with a Starbucks gift card to go buy some people something, or whether it be even just resource them with encouragement and perspective to know that they're doing better than they think they are, whatever. I just want everybody to maximize what they're doing. So if I'm a leader over volunteers, I think you have to work even harder to serve them than if you are a volunteer, because there's a lot of stewardship, right? Or there's a lot of opportunity right there. There's a lot of ownership that you now need to steward through great people who are doing the purest form of serving because they have no tangible reward coming back at them. I think that's great.
That's cool. Yeah. Soon you'll get the chance to speak into us and teach us on a special topic. But lastly, I'm just going to throw this in here because I know you've just written a short ebook.
Yes.
It's called Owner's Manual about ownership. Something I think all of us, we want our people to have more ownership. Yeah. And who is it for, and why is it for free?
Who's it for? I feel like it's almost for everybody, but I wrote it in mind. It's definitely in the church context. I think it does apply to different businesses and industries, but I wrote it, obviously, a lot of the language in there will be through the church context. But I wrote it because I get a lot of leaders literally around the world who are saying like, man, my team just won't get it. My team doesn't own this. I feel like I can't get them to go the next level. And I wrote it to answer those questions because I think they're valid questions, but they're incomplete questions. And so I'm like, hey, so I kind of, and as you know, I started out with this idea of comparing it to buying a car or even buying a t-shirt. Like when you buy something, AKA you own something, there's a process that took place. But in church world, we usually like to shortcut it and just go like, Simon, you need to own it. Like, what does that mean? So I wanted to kind of flesh that a little bit more. It's free because, man, I just wanted to add value to the world. I feel like it's helpful. It's not a good business. It's not a good business practice. I think if I'm going to build a business, I need to definitely charge for stuff. but I also have this weird, crazy belief that if I can add value, that God will do the thing to pay my bills. And so far, that's been the case. Not just with this ebook, but just other things. And so I'll probably charge in the future for something. I don't know. But if people continue to find this valuable, man, so be it. Definitely, it's a PDF. Yeah. It's easy to read. Everybody in the world can get it. You know, if cool. It helps you, hopefully it helps you.
Yeah, if it's okay with you, we're going to put it on a website so people can download it. Right. And to everyone out there listening to this and enjoying this day, make sure you follow Stephen P. Webb, right?
Yes, that's right.
Instagram.
That's right.
And if you ever run out of content for a leadership rally or speaking into your volunteers, you just go in and grab one of his 5 things post, and you'll be set. You'll be set. You'll have something to say. That's good. And I know Sweb will love it. So that's right. Thanks so much for this conversation. Now we're looking forward to hear you speak a little bit further on this topic that we'll hear after this.
I'm excited about it. See you soon.
Yeah.